Safe Alliance is Austin's leading organization helping survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking escape abuse and rebuild their lives. Right now in Austin, 88 people are waiting for Safe's emergency shelter. Nearly 40 of them are children. If every person in the Austin Metro gave just $1 a month, it would house 1,000 people every night. So start your monthly gift today at safeaustin.org/citycastgives. That's SAFEAUSTIN.org/citycastgives. $1, huge impact. We all know Texas weather is crazy. Whether it's our uncomfortably warm summers or our crazy freezes in the winter, the one thing that's consistent is those ridiculously high electric bills. New windows could help change that. And right now, Window Nation is having a buy 4, get 4 windows free sale. You can also get them with 0 down, 0 monthly payments, and 0 interest for 2 years. Plus, Window Nation's windows come with a lifetime warranty. So, schedule a fast, free estimate now at windownation.com. Austin is still under an extreme cold warning and covered in a blanket of ice after sleet and frozen rain fell late Saturday, claiming the life of at least one unhoused person. There are school cancellations, delayed services, and roadways are a mess, so stay at home if you can. We'll have more on the storm on our website, but while you're waiting for things to thaw out, we thought we'd dig into something completely different. Austin's weird laws. There are thousands of ways to break the law here, and today on CityCast Austin, my guest gets into the weird, the wacky, and the downright painful laws of our past and present. It's Monday, January 26th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here with Jeff Burkhart, Travis County Executive for Community Legal Services. Hi, Jeff. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Nikki. Thanks for having me.
So the new year just started, and right off top, are there any new laws that people should be aware of if they want to stay out of trouble?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on as far as new laws. You know, the Texas legislature often looks at up to 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 laws in any given session. A lot of those go into effect September 1st. Many go into effect January 1st. The things that we're really looking at are bills like SB 9. You know, SB 9 tells us as a county who we have to keep in jail pre-trial. That's a really big deal for us.
Yeah.
Another one that's important for us is SB 8. SB 8 is new, and that's really kind of dictates that sheriffs and counties have to partner with the federal government when it comes to immigration. That's really tough, right? I mean, and Texas is not the only state doing that, but that really has the possibility of changing the landscape for immigration and criminal justice in Texas.
Oh my gosh. And this is such a crazy time for that too. This is a crazy time for that.
Yeah, it sure is.
Oh my gosh. So we love to keep things weird in Austin. Everybody knows it. And, you know, we're straying away from it a little bit, but we're just holding on. Like, you can take our weirdness from our cold, dead fingers. You know what I mean? And apparently that extends to our local laws. Is it true that it's illegal to throw something off of Mount Benel?
Yeah, it's interesting when it comes to kind of weird laws. You know, I guess always think of 3 kind of categories, right, of weird or unusual or just striking laws, right?
Yeah.
The first are the ones that we always think of, like it's illegal to throw something off of Mount Benel, you know, or it's illegal to shoot a buffalo from the 2nd story window, you know, those sorts of things that you think are kind of funny.
What?
With a little bit more legal research, we could probably confirm or deny that. But I've got a list for you of a lot of weird and wacky laws.
Yes.
And happy to talk about those. You know, after we talk about that, the really painful things too in our Texas history, you know, that deal with race and class and gender, many of which are still on the books today. So, I mean, I want to make sure we're talking about that sort of stuff too. And then really the third thing that kind of came up in researching this, you know, I was talking to public defenders across the state about this, and there were some funny and sometimes not so funny kind of strange laws, maybe uses or misuses of those laws today that we see that I think are worth talking about. So those are kind of the 3 things. I think the really truly wacky laws, the kind of frankly, painful moments in our history too. And then what are we doing today?
Oh, I love this. I love that you've broken this down into categories. Yeah. I'm super into it, Jeff. Yes, let's do it.
Well, the one that, if you just Google weird Texas laws, you're going to get a dozen different websites. And when I dug in, especially to the penal code back in the 1920s, here are some ones that stood out to me. Milking another's cow.
I'm sorry. I'm already giggling. It's 2 seconds in.
Just wait. It gets stranger. Whoever, without the consent of the owner, shall take up, use, or milk any cow not his own, shall be fined not exceeding $10. So that's a very specific law.
It's so specific.
I don't think that comes up in Austin very often, that somebody's, milking another's cow. But a lot of these wacky laws kind of come from our agrarian past in Texas, right? That they're very oddly specific laws. So, another one, this one, just the phrasing here really kind of cracks me up. And this is just how language has changed over time. This is Article 1340 from the Penal Code of 1925. Using animal without consent. Any person who shall take and use any horse, mule, ox, cow, or any other dumb animal, the property of another, without the consent of the owner, shall be fined not less than $10. So I just love the phrasing, just stuff that ways we wouldn't talk about creatures today. What? Any dumb animal.
Any dumb animal. You cannot use anybody else's dumb animal. You can't do that.
No, you can't milk your neighbor's cow. You can't use somebody else's dumb animal.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But some of them kind of get into, just more human behavior, though. We move outside of the realm of cows and dumb animals into what we actually call people, right? So this is one that really jumped out at me. Whoever in any newspaper or handbill shall publish another as a coward, or to use other opprobrious language, shall be fined not exceeding $200. And if such publication or posting be in consequence of a refusal to fight a duel, the punishment shall be a fine of not less than $500. So you can't go on the newspaper and call, Nikki, you may want to do this, but you can't go on the newspaper and call Jeff Burkhardt a coward without getting a fine.
I love that so much. That is the 1920s version of say it with your chest. Say it with your whole chest. Just say it with your chest. If you're going to talk about me, we are having a duel. We are fighting.
Right.
You got to pay some money.
Don't just call me a coward. Bring your guns. Right.
I love this so much. It's so Texas-y. I love it so much.
There's one that our approach to drugs has changed over time in Texas, right? So this is dating back to 1925. A lot of these laws were done away with in the 1970s, but this one was on the books for many decades. This is Article 720 from 1925. No person shall sell, furnish, or give away cocaine, morphine, or cannabis, unless there's an original written order or prescription of a lawfully authorized practitioner of medicine, dentistry, or veterinary medicine. So, look, no cocaine, no weed, no morphine, unless some doctor says it's okay. Then partake.
And it could be any doctor. It could be a vet. It could be a dentist. It could be a medical doctor. It doesn't matter. Any of those doctors can let you give away cocaine.
I have an excellent dentist, but I don't think she would ever prescribe me cocaine today. So that's the way we had to get into a slightly different approach there. Yeah. There are a couple that are oddly specific here. This is Article 923, Texas Penal Code from 1925. So this is the don't ship a squirrel law.
Don't ship a squirrel?
Whoever shall ship beyond the limits of Liberty County any wild squirrels shall be fined not less than $10 or more than $100. So really specific, like it's Liberty County. So I guess in Travis, we're fine. We can ship all the wild squirrels we want. We're good.
I wonder if the squirrel was like their favorite animal in Liberty County. Like, what is going on? You cannot ship any squirrels.
And only wild squirrels, though. Domesticated squirrels were kind of left out of this. So if you have a squirrel as a pet, I guess you can ship it. You're okay.
I always think about all these old laws and rules, and I always wonder, like, did something happen and then they had to they had to be like, okay, we got to get this under control. It's like I can't decide which is better, that something happened and then they had to be like, all right, y'all, they are shipping these squirrels out, these wild squirrels, too much. We got to make a law. Or if it's just like a bunch of people sitting around like, oh, and also, we don't want anybody shipping squirrels. It's like, I don't know which is first, the chicken or the egg, but I love it. I love it.
And it's funny because a lot of that same, you're right on the money, because a lot of that same mentality that something weird or bad happens, and maybe it's unique and it'll never happen again, but people really get up in arms and they want to legislate, right? And they call their representatives and that kind of thing. And that's how you end up with really kind of over-criminalization in a lot of ways. We have about 2,000 criminal laws in Texas, right? So it is easy to break the law here because we have so many criminal laws, right? There's another one. This one is off the books now, but there's a don't catch turtles with dynamite law.
What?
So again, from 1925 here, this is Article 924. The catching, taking, or the attempt to catch or take any fish, green turtle, or terrapin by poison, lime, dynamite, nitroglycerin, giant powder, or other explosive, or by the use of drugs, substance, or other deleterious to fish life is hereby prohibited. So you can't drug the turtles, you can't blow them up with dynamite, no fishing for terrapin with nitroglycerin. It's pretty specific. But like you said, maybe that was a problem at some point, that somebody was fishing for turtles with dynamite.
Evidently in the 1920s, they were doing all kinds of weird stuff with animals to where we had to make these rules. Don't touch my animals. Don't milk my cows. Don't blow up my turtles. Like this, there were things afoot with the animals, evidently, in 1925.
If you stop getting cocaine from your dentist, then you don't have to worry about people blowing up all the turtles with dynamite, right? I think there's a connection there.
Oh my God, these are great.
The last couple, as far as kind of the more wacky one, I mean, this one I think of, it's almost like an anti-Buc-ee's law that, when you go into Buc-ee's and there's squirrels everywhere, but also you have Texas flag on the swimsuits and a Texas flag on a towel and that kind of stuff. So this is dating back to 1925. No person shall use any form of the flag of the state of Texas for the purpose of advertising or giving publicity to any goods, wares, or merchandise, or any commercial undertaking, or for any trade or commercial purpose. So you shouldn't have that Texas flag on your swim trunks. You shouldn't have it on your towel. You shouldn't, so that's... That
ship has sailed.
That ship has sailed. Yeah, long gone. But one that's a modern day one that I thought you might enjoy. This is again, it kind of gets to our overcriminalization problem. There's a great blog. It's a little inactive now, but it's worth checking out, called Grits for Breakfast, run by a guy named Scott Henson here in Austin. And Grits for Breakfast really describes a lot of what's going on in criminal justice across Texas. One of the things that he has highlighted again and again is our oyster laws. And these are on the books today. We have about a dozen oyster laws in Texas, and they're felonies. That's what's weird about this, right? You think about fishing without a license or something like that, and you might get a ticket or a small fine or whatever. These are felonies. I mean, felonies, cases where you can go to prison for over a year. And those oyster laws include things like interfering with an oyster buoy, dredging for oysters at night, or selling sport oysters. So those are all things that are still criminalized today. So really,
a felony?
Specific. A felony.
What?
A felony.
What could dredging for oysters at night hurt? What could that hurt? Why is that a felony? What's going on?
If I knew more about oysters, I could maybe tell you. But I that's one that just even if it's a problem, I don't know why they couldn't just find somebody. I don't know why you have to threaten prison time over a year for dredging oysters at night. But yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy.
So those are some of the kind of the traditional kind of wacky laws related to criminal justice in Texas.
Murder on the Orient Express steams onto the Zach Theater stage January 21st through March 1st with intrigue, elegance, and jaw-dropping 1930s grandeur. Agatha Christie's iconic whodunit is packed with twists, deception, and edge-of-your-seat suspense. Now, if you've never heard of Murder on the Orient Express, let me paint a picture. A glittering evening turns deadly. A body is discovered, tensions rise, secrets spill, and suddenly everyone aboard this luxurious train becomes a suspect in a brilliantly crafted murder mystery. This is perfect for fans of mystery, elegance, classic drama, and immersive high-stakes storytelling. It's a spectacular night out for date nights, group outings, and anyone really craving a world-class whodunit. And it's on stage now at Zach Theater. So get your tickets now at zachtheater.org. is in the air this February in Brenham. Sneak away for a couples weekend and get cozy with some real Texas charm in their historic walkable downtown where you can take your pick of wine bars, breweries, and restaurants. But listen to these cute events that caught my eye. You can check out Hack Winery and sip your way through the world's first video mapping wine tasting experience. Every weekend features either live music, karaoke, or music trivia. And on February 14th, there will be music bingo featuring love songs. Or you could catch a performance of William Shakespeare's star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet, at the Dr. W. W. O'Donnell Performing Arts Center. And those are just two of the many options. Brenham shines bright all year long. So plan your getaway now at visitbrenhamtexas.com. You talked about there's still some laws that are technically in effect, but they're not enforced. Like in 1857, Texas banned almost all abortions in the state. The ban was unenforceable while Roe v. Wade was in law. But when Roe v. Wade was overturned, the old law became enforceable again. Right. And so I'm curious if there are other laws that could come back to life in a similar way.
Yeah. Yeah, they're almost like these slumbering laws, right? That what happened, and this is fairly common. I mean, when you look at the U.S. Supreme Court during the Warren years, when he was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in the 1960s and thereabouts, a lot of changes took place. They had a much broader interpretation of the Constitution and the way it applies to the states. And we see all sorts of cases coming out of the 60s and 70s, Roe v. Wade and similar things. And, some states really did take to the books and they legislated and they changed the laws to make sure that they were in line with the Warren Court and the decisions of that era. But you're spot on. I mean, the Roe v. Wade is an excellent example of that unless a legislature actually takes action, a lot of times these things are still on the books, right? Whether they're enforced or not, whether they're even constitutional or not. And then if the law changes at the federal level, then all of a sudden you see these kind of sleeper kind of laws come back into effect, right? I mean, laws that we hadn't thought about for 50, 60 years, right? When I was looking at a lot of these laws, I couldn't make it through without all kinds of laws about race and class and gender jumping out at you. And and what really, for me at least, was just striking, we study about Jim Crow in school and we learn about things like that. But it's, I think, one thing to study it, and then it's another, at least for me, when I'm reading the actual language and seeing how we treated human beings and the way that we legislated for cruelty, really, based on race and class and gender issues. So this is a tough subject, but if you're open to it, I'm happy to read some of the laws that were on the books in the 1920s. If it's
I'm absolutely open. Absolutely.
So here's one that this is again just painful to read. This is an anti-sodomy law. What struck me as particularly cruel about this law that I'm about to read is that it talks about a gay relationship as being the same as bestiality, the way it kind of equates the two, which is just jaw-dropping to me. So this is Article 524 of the Texas Penal Code from 1925. And the title is Sodomy. Whoever commits with mankind or beast the abominable and detestable crime against nature shall be confined in the penitentiary not less than 5 nor more than 15 years. So we're talking about what today we think of as normal and loving relationships, right, between two consenting adults. And here, I mean, a century ago, and frankly more recent than that, we equated it with bestiality. And it's just, again, I think we know some of that history, and then you read the law on this, and for me, it kind of sends chills down your spine to think about how we treated people and continue to treat people sometimes.
Yeah. This is so interesting because I have heard several times in my life that there are still sodomy laws all over Texas. And so that's the part of it that's also really kind of horrific to me, is that in 1925, that was crazy. We didn't have all of the knowledge and all of the language and all of the understanding that we do now. So surely in 2026, this would not be something that we'd have to even think about because it sounds so ridiculous. But there are still these types of laws all over Texas. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, really all throughout the South. I mean, if it would be a fascinating research project for somebody to dive into all the laws, like you said, that are still on the books And it may not be
Yeah.
enforced, but gosh, not taking them off the books is also kind of a sign of our values in a way, isn't it? I mean,
It
that's
is.
scary.
Yeah, not taking them off the books is complicit. Like
Yeah.
you're kind of like rolling the dice with someone's life, I think.
Yeah. And like you said, you never know what's going to come back, right? I mean, we see ebbs and
Yeah.
flows of, cultural norms. And here, this is one that deals with kind of the control of women's bodies in some way. And of course, there were earlier abortion laws in Texas. But here's one that's a little more specific, dealing with women who are traveling, who are dancers. In the statute, this is Article 532, traveling women dancers, it's called. Any person or aggregation of persons traveling from place to place, composed in whole or in part of women, who shall show or exhibit in any dancing performances, or as dancers in a tent, enclosure, or temporary structure in any location whatsoever, shall be fined not less than $100, no more than $500. And what's so interesting here, I mean, there's a misogynistic aspect of this. There's a gender kind of controlling aspect. But then the very next law on the books after that draws exceptions to that. And it includes for, women are allowed to dance if it's a theatrical company or an opera house or a playhouse or an auditorium. So not only was this gendered aspect to it, but there's also kind of a class aspect of it.
Yeah.
Women can't dance in a tent, but I tell you, if it's in an opera house, it's okay.
If it's for rich people.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
If it's for rich people, you can dance for rich people, but not in a tent.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think it's always really, really discombobulating when something from 100 years ago is still, it's just like that now. The classism and the allowances for rich people but not for common or poor people, just the sameness is a little it's just like, okay, we're still there, we haven't okay, we're not learning our lessons.
I mean, this is 1925, but gosh, do we hear echoes of this over time, right? I mean, you look at even the Clinton crime bills in the 90s that differentiated crack and cocaine, and how how that dealt with race and class. There are all these echoes of this stuff that keep on hitting us, a century later.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear more. I'm ready. I'm ready to be educated.
So these are ones that are directly, I mean, again, we're familiar with Jim Crow laws, but when I read these, it kind of transports you in a very chilling way. So these are some Jim Crow laws. These from 1925. This is about bath facilities. This is Article 1612. It says, this is the quote from the statute: "The baths and lockers for Negroes shall be separate from those for whites, but may be in the same building." Similarly, in Article 1659, this is for railways, it says, "Every railway company shall provide separate coaches or compartments for the accommodation of white and Negro passengers." To read those words, and again, I mean, maybe this is stuff that we know. I mean, and I'm just a quick plug here. If anybody's ever been to, I don't know if you know Brian Stevenson, who with Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama, he has a museum on the racial history and justice in the United States in Montgomery, Alabama. And that's a place, like visiting museums like that are such a gut punch and a reality check about our history. And in much the same way, when I was going through the penal code and you see the actual language, it's kind of the same gut punch. And it's hard to read.
Well, and those things were still happening not that long ago.
Right.
That's the other thing, too. My mom is 71. So in my mom's lifetime, she remembers as a kid things being that way. So that's, I think that's the other thing that's kind of mind-blowing about this. It's like both the fact that a lot of these laws even existed, but then also that some of it, not much changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's marginalization throughout the ages, right? I mean, and you're I think spot on. It's like, this is not ancient history. A lot of our civil rights heroes, you think about integration, Ruby Bridges, one of our civil rights heroes, who was a child who, was part of the integration movement in the South. She's younger than my dad,
Yeah, she's still alive.
She's 70s. She's not, she just recently was hitting, Medicare and Social Security and that kind of thing. We were not talking ancient history. You're right.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, I'm curious. So like, when I think about these laws, the ones that can like creep back up just because, or come, become enforceable again. When I think about stuff like this, I think about what are our protections from these laws? Like, what, I mean? Like, it's the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution grants people the right to legal representation, right? I'm curious. First of all, I'm just curious about how you would even go about enforcing these laws. And then I'm curious how we would go about, making sure that we are represented fairly. Like, what would that look like if something like this came up?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, especially with 2,000 laws in the books, one of the things that we see, I think, throughout all of these different laws that we're talking about, the wacky ones, but also the painful ones in our history, is kind of selective enforcement in some ways, right? And you mentioned all these kind of slumbering laws that are still in the books, but not enforced today. What are our protections against that? I mean, part of it is, man, do elections matter? When I have good friends and neighbors who I love dearly who don't vote, and it pains me to think about that, because I've spent enough time in the Texas legislature. I worked at a state agency for many years, and to see what happens, and gosh, you really have to be careful about who you elect. And I think, too, really keeping eyes on what happens at that legislature, what new laws are taking effect. And then lastly, when, this is what's wild, we have such selective enforcement of laws across Texas today, when it comes to, for instance, like marijuana enforcement, the way we deal with, our friends and neighbors who are unhoused, the way we enforce those sorts of laws. One of the greatest checks we have on that huge government power, that power to take a person out of their community, to take them out of their home, to take them away from their family and their jobs, their churches, really is to have strong defense counsel, right? And that's one of the things that our department really focuses on with community legal services. Our whole job is to provide attorneys to people who can't afford them. What's wild about Texas, well, there are many things wild about Texas, but one of the things that's wild about Texas, people are used to, I think, on television and in movies, seeing you get arrested, you can't afford a lawyer, you get a public defender.
Right.
We have 254 counties, and only about 80 of those have a public defender office.
What?
Yeah. So what does that mean? Now, that doesn't always mean you won't get an attorney. In some places, they'll use private attorneys, and they'll contract with them on a case-by-case basis, and you may get a lawyer. But especially rural Texas today, we have a lot of places where, in particular in misdemeanor cases, jailable misdemeanor cases, where you can spend up to a year in jail, where people aren't getting lawyers on a regular basis. And that's painful. I mean, it's having a lawyer by your side is a gateway right that to help you enforce all the other rights that you have. Unless you have somebody by your side who understands criminal law, criminal procedure, the rules of evidence, how to navigate a courthouse, you're really in pretty tough shape.
That's terrifying. First of all, that's just it's just very,
we
it's
were
very
wacky
scary.
And scary, yeah.
Yeah. What grade would you give Travis County when it comes to just like being able to provide public defenders? How are we doing in that realm?
Well, I'd say, and I'm going to self-grade because I work for Travis County, so I'm a little bit biased, but I think by Texas standards, we're doing very well. We have a strong public defender office. We have, when we're using private attorneys, we have something called a managed assigned counsel system that kind of does oversight and provides resources for the private attorneys taking cases. We're now providing counsel at first appearance, and this is another wild thing, that the very first time you appear in court in front of a judge is first appearance. Only 7 Texas counties have lawyers at first appearance. So that means that in the vast majority of Texas, after you're arrested, the very first time you appear in front of a judge, you have no lawyer by yourself.
You're by yourself.
You're by yourself, and good luck, right?
Oh,
and
my God.
important things are happening at that first appearance, right? I mean, they're telling
that you don't understand,
right? That you may not understand. I mean, they're setting bail at that appearance. They're informing you of your rights at that appearance. It's hugely important. They're determining whether you're going to spend the next days, weeks, or months of your life in jail. And most of Texas with no lawyer by your side, right? Only 7 counties have that. So Travis County is one of those. But I'll say too, so if even if you looked at our spending, we spend more in Travis County per capita for public defense. We have a more robust program than most of the rest of Texas. But we are falling behind most of the rest of the nation, and falling behind most of the rest of the nation, not just in terms of spending, but also in terms of our ability to meet national standards, right? Our caseloads are too high, for instance. We have lawyers who have way too many cases by any standard. And I don't care how good of an attorney you are. You could be an amazing trial attorney, doesn't matter if you have too many clients, right? You just don't have time
Yeah.
with them. So we do struggle with that. We are trying to fix that. We have an attorney shortage too. We've gone from 250 lawyers doing this work a decade ago to about a half that today. So we've got a lot right so far, but we have a lot of work to do.
It just sounds like a really difficult job.
Yeah.
To keep people in. It feels like a burn and turn situation sometimes.
Yeah.
What are the things that makes it so hard to keep people in there?
So, having a competitive salary, right? I mean, it's expensive to live in Austin, and making sure that people are paid well and they have good benefits and they find a home here. That's a big part of it. Making sure they have reasonable caseloads so that they can do all the things that a lawyer needs to do, right? I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's a misdemeanor or a murder case. You need to meet with your client. You need to research the law. You need to file motions. You need to appear in court. You need to investigate. You need to make sure that you're serving immigration needs for that client, right? Or other needs related to housing or substance use or jobs or being unhoused. But I think one of the other things that, even assuming you have all those resources, one of the things that makes it both a privilege but also a very difficult job, if you're being a client-centered attorney, if you're really working hard and standing alongside somebody in their worst moments, because these are a lot of times folks' worst moments in their lives, right? I mean, they're facing jail or prison time, being removed from their community, their jobs, their homes, their families. You may work very hard. You may be an excellent attorney, and you may still lose and see somebody who you've really grown to care deeply about go off to prison.
Right. And you're invested in this person at this point too. You're invested.
That's right. And you do it day in and day out, and it's tough. And you really do need, I think, a community of public defense folks, attorneys, social workers, investigators, really a community to support you in those kind of instances to make it sustainable in the long term.
I didn't even think about the mental taxing of that. Like, just day in, day out, having somebody's freedom, having somebody's autonomy in your hands, day in, day out. Yeah, that's heavy.
It's a lot.
That is heavy.
We work on the criminal side, but also on the civil side. We work in cases where there's a danger of children and parents being separated, and I think about, and we do representation in those cases too. I think about losing my own kids. I can only think about it for a minute before I it's just too much, so it's tough work. It's rewarding work, but gosh, is it tough.
So I have this pretty strong belief that with community, you can really achieve almost anything, right? So I always like to ask people, like, what can the Austin community do to help? We talked about voting because voting is important, but is there any way, how can we help? Especially when it comes to just like making sure people get the representation that they deserve, making sure their rights are, making sure their rights are observed. What can Austin do?
Yeah, a few different ideas. One is get involved in groups that are working. Especially if you're interested in the criminal legal system, get involved in groups that are really trying to help. And some of those groups include, Inside Books Project. I mean, they're getting books to folks who are serving time in Texas prisons. Texas Harm Reduction Alliance does an excellent job working with substance issues. Austin Area Urban League, supporting ACLU of Texas, supporting, there's a group called Advocates for Social Justice Reform, Grassroots Leadership. I mean, we have so many. I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about Austin. In Travis County, we have so many wonderful groups interested in these issues. So one simple way is just reach out to those groups and just say, hey, what are you all up to? How can I support you? And if you can support with a donation, great. If you don't have any money, show up, your time, and they will definitely plug you in. They will bring you to, people show up to Commissioner's Court here in Travis County all the time, which is another way to get involved. Look at what's happening at City Hall. Look at what's happening in Travis County Commissioner's Court. Pay attention to it and come up and testify and ask questions. And another way, if folks ever want to reach out to me directly, we meet with community groups quarterly to talk about what's going on in criminal justice. We meet here at 700 Lavaca with a lot of the groups that I just mentioned, Vocal Texas included, a lot of other folks. And talk about what's going on in criminal justice here. And they give folks a chance to meet with our chief public defender, the head of our private defender group, the Capital Area Private Defender Service, our child representation, parental representation, our law library, all those places. So those are all good ways, I think, to get involved.
Jeff, thank you so much for this. This was such a great conversation and so illuminating and educational. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Nikki.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Jeff's website in our show notes. If you enjoyed this show, tell your friend that likes murder podcasts and likes crime and likes to get all into the guts of weird, wacky stuff. Rate our show, leave us a review, have uncomfortable conversations about what we just talked about. Subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. And if you really love us and you love stuff like this and you were as tickled today by this episode as I was, become a CityCast neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.